Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about King of Kong Island from 1968. And this film begins with a group of mercenaries robbing a payroll convoy in East Africa. They capture about $300,000 in the successful attack. That's about $2.5 million in today's money, 2022. But then after the robbery, one of the number betrays the others, gunning them all down. And running off with the cash. Only one of the mercenaries who gets gunned down, a man named Bert Dawson, survives. He is merely injured, not killed in the betrayal. Remember that for later. We next see the betrayer, dressed in surgical gear, implanting an electronic device into the skull of a gorilla. It seems the murderous mercenary is a mad scientist as well. He's a busy dude. He's apparently using the money he stole to marshal an army of mind-controlled gorillas with which he intends to... Well, I mean, the movie does ultimately get around to explaining his longer-term plan, but not for ages yet, and those plans are frankly completely nonsensical, so don't worry about them too much. In the short term, what he intends to use these gorillas for is to kidnap a young woman as a means of luring the aforementioned Bart Dawson to his lair so that he can kill Mr. Dawson. I mean, it does seem like there would be easier ways to get around, to kill Dawson if he really needed to do so. And does he need to? It's not like Bert Dawson has made much discernible effort to find him, or at least no successful effort to find him. Oh well, I'm going to create an army of mind-controlled gorillas is probably not the thought process of a rational mind to begin with, I guess, so perhaps expecting him to behave rationally is a bit much. Anyway, Mr. Dawson sees right through this scheme. He's fully aware of what's going on somehow, but he's up for a rematch with his betrayer, so he plunges into the jungle for their inevitable showdown. And that basically is the setup of King of Kong Island. This Italian film is also known as just Kong Island, which is the title I saw it under, and as Eve the Wild Woman, as well as obviously the Italian translations thereof. Got to say that last title sounds like a different film from the other ones, and it's probably not a surprise to you when I say that this is not a very good film. Anyone surprised? No, probably not. Anyway, let's talk about some of the reasons why that is. Okay, so first of all, yes, the title of this film obviously echoes the classic 1933 adventure film King Kong, which is a fantastic piece of cinema. This is purely a case of coattail riding. There's no connection between the two movies. King Kong has no role in this film. Nobody involved in King Kong has a role in this film. Yes, the bad guy does employ mind-controlled gorillas as his minions, but they're not giant gorillas. They're just ordinary-sized ones. And for that matter, technically, I mean, if we look behind the camera or behind the curtain, what the bad guy actually employs is men dressed in gorilla costumes because that's a lot cheaper and easier and safer and probably a lot more humane, given Italian filmmaking practice of the 60s and 70s, than using real gorillas would have been. But, in the fiction, he's got mind-controlled gorillas, which at least, he's got some style, right? What the bad guy doesn't have, in addition to not having King Kong, is an island. There is not any island at all in this film, in fact. The film is set in the jungles of East Africa. Would you be surprised to learn then, after all the things that this film doesn't actually have in it, that it kind of claims that it does, that the one thing it does have are things that do not actually exist, because, the jungle in Africa is in the west around the Congo Basin. East Africa is actually mostly grasslands and savanna. So, this is a movie set in a place that doesn't exist, but it doesn't tell you it's set in that place that doesn't exist. It tells you it's set in a place that it doesn't have in it. It's very strange. Mind you, it is an Italian film from the late 60s and, making sense, not often a thing they were terribly worried about. Right, secondly, as is often the case with 60s Italian cinema, this is not a movie that is familiar with the concept of restraint. So let's talk about the things that are in this movie. We've got a years-long blood feud, mad scientist, mind-controlled gorillas. That's probably enough for any other 90-minute action film, but in King of Kong Island, it's just the start. The film decides to work in adulterous affairs, misguided hero worship, headhunters, a legendary sacred monkey, an Interpol agent who just pops up randomly and then just as randomly disappears again. Possibly he's killed by the headhunters, but the film's not really very clear about his fate. And it's not finished yet. It also has a chimpanzee comic relief character and a scantily clad jungle goddess who turns out to be the sacred monkey everyone has been blathering on about. Honestly, a less monkey-like figure would be hard to imagine, but that's what the film's going to go with. It's a bit like, when, if you had all the natives in King Kong do their Kong, Kong, Kong chant, only for like Fay Ray to pop out at the end. It's just, why is she the sacred monkey? Not the gorillas are monkeys. Who knows? Anyway. It is a movie that just like throws everything at the wall to see what will stick. The answer is actually not very much. Finally, we come to the issue of motivation, both of the characters within the fiction and of us, the audience, because in both cases, they're somewhat lacking. I'll acknowledge that Bert Dawson has motivation to plunge into the non-existent East African jungle in search of the man who shot him, but why does this mad scientist so desperately want Dawson to do so? I've already mentioned that there would be easier ways to get rid of Dawson, but more to the point, why does the scientist so desperately want Dawson to die? It's not like Dawson shot him, or seems to have any leads on tracking him down, until he basically rolls out a welcome mat saying, "Please come kill me." What exactly is his motivation for doing this? And then there's the question of why should we care? It's not like the bad guy's long-term plans are feasible, so we don't have to worry about them being thwarted, and Bert Dawson is certainly not a very likeable character. We know he's a murderous mercenary. The opening sequence of the film tells us that. But not only that, he's kind of a jerk in general. He's a buff and handsome jerk, I guess, and this is the era of the Sean Connery James Bond, who is a thoroughly awful human being. But still, it would perhaps be helpful to our engagement if Dawson had some redeeming features. And then finally, also interfering with the audience caring is the film's wonky pacing. The very start and the very end of this movie have some action to it, but the middle hour is pretty tedious inert. For all the activity that's going on, because as I said, there are lots of things being sort of thrown at the wall here, and the very many different plot elements introduced, none of them has much traction or momentum. They just kind of exist in a blancmange jelly concoction of nothingness, really. So that's King of Kong Island, a not very good film. Next time, I'm going to be having a look at the 2007 Resident Evil film, Resident Evil Extinction, after the disappointing Resident Evil Apocalypse. Will Milla Jovovich's next batch of zombie fighting prove better? Tune in next time to find out. But as I said, that is for next time. So in the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.